I'm Harry.
And I'm Ralph.
And today we're going to talk about Makoto Shinkai's latest film, Weathering with You.
This is kind of a spiritual sequel to Your Name, and it actually has some of the same characters from Your Name.
Yes, but it is my opinion, if you go and see this movie with the expectations that it will be as good as Your Name, you will probably be in for a little bit of disappointment.
Well, it is incredibly similar to Your Name. They're both about kind of a magical love story set in Tokyo, but I didn't feel like the plot was as strong in this one. Your Name has an incredibly strong twist that just completely flips the movie on its head halfway through. But this film didn't have anything like this. It felt a little bit more standard throughout the movie.
When we watch this film, we can see that it has spectacular sequences, terrific animation, and a great deal of color contrast. We look at the streets of Tokyo, and they're in such a great detail when we look at the streets, the buildings, the restaurants, everything. And it feels so real, as if you're really in Tokyo.
The animation is beautiful. I love the time-lapse segments that are kind of a holdover from Your Name. I think that it's really fantastic, especially the skies in this movie, because they are kind of a theme and a major part of the plot. We're constantly seeing beautifully animated skies and time-lapses of Tokyo, and I think it's really gorgeous animation. I also really enjoyed the soundtrack. It's kind of a poppy soundtrack with lyrics, but I think it fits the film really well, at least in the Japanese version, which is what we saw.
This film starts out with a 16-year-old boy named Hidaka, who's apparently very unsatisfied with his life back home, as in he goes off with basically no money to Tokyo, and he'd rather be homeless and broke in Tokyo than living back home with his folks. Later on, he goes to McDonald's and hangs out, and there's a McDonald's employee named Hina who takes pity on him by giving him a Big Mac. And when he's eating his Big Mac, he looks at it in great detail, and he eats it very slow, as in he wants that wonderful, delicious burger to last a long time, claiming it was the best meal he had in his life, which is pretty damn sad.
Later in the movie, they start a business where basically they advertise that they have a sunshine girl who can clear the clouds for you for your wedding, your party, or whatever you want. Where they say, our sunshine girl will clear the rain so you can have a great weather for your wedding, party, whatever. But I kind of wondered why they weren't being investigated like for fraud, or if they are clearly real, why isn't the government interested in kind of harvesting this technology? I mean, you'd think that if people are out there able to control the weather, she's being videotaped clearing the clouds, you'd think that governments, a lot more people would be kind of interested in that, but it's kind of blown over like nobody really cares, which I thought was a little strange.
Hidaka apparently has a puppy love for Hina, as we can see that he'd rather spend the rest of his life with her and have it rain versus leave her, and he'd get to see sunshine again.
The climax of the film is really action-packed, and I think it's, kind of great on the soundtrack, the animation, and maybe the plot isn't quite there, but I think it's a pretty solid ending. I really love how the villain, this police officer who's been chasing Hidaka throughout the whole film, finally at the end he realizes how desperate he is to see Hina again, and he helps him get to the gate. So he goes through the gate where he can see her above the city, and I think it's really sweet when he says something like, I don't care if the weather stays crazy, I just want to see you again! And then the soundtrack kicks in with this kind of poppy song while they start flying through the clouds, and the animation is incredibly memorable, how the music kicks in and the camera is spinning around them. I just don't know how they did that sort of animation where it's like a mix of 2D and 3D. They spin around the buildings, they spin around the characters, and you see the clouds whizzing past almost like it's rotoscoped, but it's just beautifully animated throughout the whole ending segment. And I think that the film wouldn't be nearly as good if the soundtrack and the animation weren't fantastic.
I absolutely agree that with its fantastic soundtracks and animation and clouds, how magnificent the weather is, and its great detail, this is a movie that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's got a really solid first two acts in my opinion, but I felt like the ending didn't quite get me the same way Your Name did. He ends up basically letting Tokyo drown at the end, which I thought was a little strange. But I still think it's a pretty great movie, or pretty great animation, and a pretty good movie overall. So, what do you think you'd give this film out of 10?
I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
Wow, that's strong praise. I think I'm going to give this film a 7.5 out of 10, but it could easily be an 8. I think it's really great. The animation and the soundtrack are both fantastic. I think just animation-wise, this film is about a 10 out of 10. But I don't think the writing is quite as good as the rest of the details. So I'm going to give it a 7.5.
Alright. Well, anyhow, thank you so much for watching this video, and please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below.
See you later.
Stay cool.